Welcome to This Week from the Principal's Desk, a podcast about Lutheran schools and their leadership. This podcast is hosted by two Lutheran school leaders. My name is Rob Lunak, and I'm the superintendent of Lutheran Neighborhood Schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And my name is Mike Sheeman. I'm principal at Bethany Lutheran School in Parma, Ohio. Today, Rob and I are actually going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite Bible passages, and it's going to kind of lead into our topic. So I don't know if people saw this or not, but LCMS School Ministry just released their theme for next school year. And their theme is the word endure, and it comes from Hebrews chapter 12, which is absolutely one of my favorite passages, where it talks about running the race with perseverance that is set before us. But even before it talks about running the race, it talks about, therefore surround yourself, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off the sin that so easily entangles and run the race. And I always tend to focus on the great cloud of witnesses because I really believe that that is one of the most tremendous blessings that God has given to us, that He has said to us, we do not run this race alone. We are never alone because He is there, which is the best promise, but then He's given us other people. And it causes me to reflect on who are those people that are around me. What does my cloud of witnesses look like? Now, I've got that cloud when it comes to family and friends, for sure. God's blessed me in that regard. But we wanted to focus a little bit more today on professionally. What does that cloud of witnesses look like for you as a leader in your school? And maybe how can you build that cloud so that it continues to challenge you to grow and leads your organization toward excellence? So we have a few thoughts and ideas we wanted to share on that today, and we'll just kind of dive right in. So Rob, for you, what would you say are some of like the top qualities that you look for in your cloud of witnesses?
So for me, one of those things I look for, I want people who honestly are missionally aligned, but also going to challenge me. Right. I want people who buy into where God is sending our organization and sending our school, but also don't say yes to everything right away. They think about it and they go, I have this great idea. It's different than your idea. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out which idea is going to be better. Because honestly, I don't need to surround myself with people who say yes to me all the time. Don't get me wrong. It's great. If everyone tells me yes all the time, that's lovely. But I say yes to myself plenty, and my ideas are just my ideas. And so I want people with other ideas. I want people who are going to bring their own perspectives. I want people who are going to be very, very good at what they do to the point where they're better than I am, right? I want to be good at one thing. I want to be good at being the leader God has called me to be. Everything else, I do not care if somebody's better than me. I like it. I'm not going to learn from anybody unless they're challenging me and challenging themselves. And so that's what I look for. And even just, I'm going to do a kind of a segue here, like people listening to this podcast. So we're on like almost 60 episodes now, right? And we have this cloud of people around us who listen to this and talk to me and go, oh, I loved that. Have you thought of this? Or, oh, that was a great episode. Or, hey, can I talk to you about this? So if you're listening to this podcast, I just want to, thank you. I think it's really neat. And you're part of that cloud as well, right? Because the unique thing about this is we have this community of people out there that I don't know all of them. And the Lutheran world's like kind of small, but I know there are people listening that I don't know. And it's really neat to have that. So if you have a different perspective out there, since we're talking about it, definitely let us know. Okay, segue over. Now, Mike, for you, what's that look like?
Yeah, well, even before you finish the segue, what I love about this is like Rob and I are not like the most brilliant on all these topics. I think our goal here is to really facilitate a conversation or to get people thinking. And I love when people come back at us and say, "Hey, I was thinking about this, and here was an idea, or here's a thought," because there's somebody out there doing it differently than you are that might challenge you. And so if you feel like you're really solid in a particular area, praise God for that. You probably are. If you can name something and claim it and say, here's what I'm really good at. But I love it when I can find people. There's always, for me, there's people doing it better all over the place than I am. And I want to learn from them. I want to hear what is it that they've got ideas about, or even people within my own organization here where I can go to them honestly and say, I'm trying to do this. I think this is the best way to go. Be honest with me. Don't be a yes man. Don't try to like prop me up and say you're doing a great job. I want to know for real, hey, this is this good or not? And be honest and tell me. So I think for me, qualities that I look for in the cloud, Rob, would definitely be that honesty for sure. And when I look for people who tell me no, I really love when people have reasoning behind their no, beyond, we've done that before. I don't know if we could pull that off. Give me some real concrete thoughts or reasoning behind it helps me a lot. But like you, I tell myself yes too much too. Hearing no is a good thing, and I think as much as we well, I'll speak for myself. As much as I want to hear no, I also need to learn to say no, and figure those kinds of things out too. So when people are talking to me or they're asking me for something that I can't do with excellence, I need to be able to tell them no. So hearing it also helps me to be able to speak it. So I guess what I look for with that honesty too is people that stretch me to grow professionally. People that can say to me, "Hey, I read a book that I think you might like," or "There's a resource over here that I think you could tap into." And so, one of the things that prevents people from doing that sometimes, in my opinion, is this humility that we carry around, right? Like, who am I to tell you that this is a good resource? Who am I to say that I have something to offer to you? But you do. You do have things to offer to me. And I love it when people can come to me and say, "Hey, I've been thinking about this, and here's something that I think might help you grow, might help you in your field." Sometimes, as a leader, we've had to do that, I'm sure, with teachers and other staff members that we have to say, "I see this as an area of growth for you." And that's not a bad thing. In fact, I'm speaking truth in love because I want you to be excellent. And so if I'm seeing that as an area of growth, here's a way that I can help you with that. And I think sometimes we need to get beyond our modesty to be able to say we can help others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that professional growth piece, that's the first little bit of this, right? When people tell you no, that kind of expands your horizons a little bit. You get a different perspective on things. And even the note about reading a book and we go, "Oh, well, I'm not as smart as this person, presenting or doing this." I've read books where definitely that person's accomplishment is that they wrote a book. I wouldn't call it good, but they wrote it, right? We've all read books like that. We're like, well, how did this get published? But you got to remember that not everyone has the same experience as you. So maybe that book was useless for you, but somebody else loved it. And it's the same with your ideas and other people. There's somebody out there who is way better than you, and there's somebody out there who's you're way better than them. And so your ideas are valuable, maybe not to everybody all the time, but that doesn't mean you don't share them, right? So definitely that professional growth piece is really important because there's always more to learn. And that makes leading a school, a difficult job because, okay, I did this. I thought I knew how to handle this. Well, now it's different. Now it's changed. Now it's a new situation, and there's always more to learn and always more to do. It can feel like being stuck in a hamster wheel every once in a while, for sure, right? It definitely has moments like that. Okay, let's talk about another perspective here. So when you go to somebody and you're like, "I have this great idea," or let's say you make a decision. You make a decision, you've done it, it's out there, and then all of a sudden the comments come in. "I didn't like that. Why didn't you ask me? I think this is a bad idea." And our first reaction a lot of the time is like a porcupine. We put up all our little spikes and we go, "You stay away or I'm going to poke you. Leave me alone." And sometimes those people are right. And you got to go, "Oh, yeah, I had a huge blind spot for that. I missed it." And you can either take that and learn from that, and you can tweak your decision, or you can hunker down and say, "No, I'm going to defend this no matter what." And we have all been there. We're halfway through an argument. We realize the other person is right, but we are not going to say they're right because we are committed personally to being correct in a situation where we cannot. So when you make those decisions, when things come up like that, I just want to encourage, be open to saying, even after you've put a lot of effort into a decision, "I was wrong." And that is something I'm still working on, Mike. I'm sure that's something you're still working on. We are all working on. I don't know anybody who loves to say I'm wrong. They'll stand up and present that they love to do it. They're lying to us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so many, I guess, qualities or ideas that we need from one another. And sometimes it's helpful to hear somebody challenge you, or helpful to hear somebody think differently than you. I mean, some of the stuff you were talking about, Rob, dealt with context. I think the context of a situation, the context of your surroundings, your people, your building, your ministry, whatever it is. But when we're challenged, it definitely promotes us to think in a different way. And sometimes that's valuable because it's easy to get the blinders on and to have your head so focused on something that you can't see the forest for the trees. And when you're challenged, it's a really healthy thing. Now, one of the things when you're talking about building your cloud of witnesses that I'm going to say is absolutely vital is trust. Because if somebody is challenging you, but it's not a person that you trust, or it's not a person that you look to for opinions, that can come off really bad sometimes. And then it leads to questioning their motives. Are they challenging you just because they want to be a disruptor? I mean, there's one thing about people that have a differing opinion and want to challenge you to help you, and then you have the people that have a different opinion that are challenging you to prove you wrong or to beat you down. And those are people that sometimes you need to weed out of the clouds, and you really need to take stock in whose opinion are you going to listen to, whose really matters to you, because there are some people that can really be that disruptor. Now, the challenge is also putting your own ego aside, because sometimes the disruptor, if you can chew the meat and spit out the bones, has something valuable to say or has something valuable to offer. I had this experience recently where there was somebody who very much challenged something that we were doing. Now, we were on the path, the unstoppable path of this is happening, and there was excitement around this. But this one guy just loves to be the rain cloud in every situation. And so every time, you get an email from this, you know the people I'm talking about. You get an email from the guy, or your phone rings and you see his name on caller ID. You're like, oh gosh, him again. And it can be a challenge, but I still take his calls. I still respond to his emails, but I try to listen for what is he saying? Is there any value in what he's saying? Because he still engages with me, which is kind of that says something in and of itself. So rather than being dismissive of this, it's a matter of what can I hear from somebody like this, even though his opinions are drastically polar opposite of mine. I say we should be going right. He says we should be going left. How do we meet in the middle? So it is important to listen to people like that as well, even though they can be challenging. But building that trust and having trust in your cloud of witnesses, I think you're going to have a small group of people. For me, I've got like maybe 3 or 4 that I could probably run anything by. And I trust them enough that if they tell me that is the dumbest thought I've ever heard and I think it's gold, I'm going to totally divert my direction because I trust them. And that trust has been proven over and over. So it's really important in your cloud, get those people that you can say anything to and that you can receive anything from, that they're going to tell you, wow, I can't even believe those words are coming out of your mouth. And you're like, hey, tell me more. Absolutely vital. I mean, Rob, how many people would you say you have in your life? Like, that's not going to be a large group, I don't think, right?
Right. Yeah. I got a handful of people that I know. One, I trust their advice. Their perspective is different than mine. And I don't love everything, right? You don't have to agree with all these people. You're not looking around and taking a consensus vote as a leader. There are decisions you need to make that not everyone's going to like, and that doesn't mean they're the wrong decisions. It just means not everyone's going to like them, right? My kid, one of them loves vanilla ice cream, one of them loves chocolate ice cream. Neither one of them is right or wrong. They like different things. And it's going to be the same way with some of the decisions you make. Some of them are preference. Well, I wouldn't have done it this way. Well, I would have preferred this. Well, why didn't we think of this thing? And those are good questions to ask, but that doesn't mean you need to change your decision all the time.
Hmm.
And I think that's the difference. You want these outside perspectives so you can make sure you're making the best decision. But at the end of the day, a decision has to be made. And the second you make a decision, not everyone is going to like it. Think of whatever your favorite thing in the entire world is. And I guarantee there's someone here who hates it, cannot stand whatever your favorite thing in the world is, right? And it doesn't make you right or them wrong, although we'd like to say that they're wrong, right? We'd like to think that. And that's just how it is. And that is something that we need to embrace, because the the resilience through decision making is a really important thing. We get decision fatigue sometimes. We can overanalyze, and as principals, we can put ourselves in a position where we will not make a decision when we need to because we're waiting for one more thing and one more thing and one more thing, and I need this perspective, and what if this person doesn't like it, and how do I handle that? And at the end of the day, you just got to go. Think of it like driving. The light is green when it is green. You had some time to get ready. It's green now, right? And you can't sit through a green light and not make a decision. You gotta go. Okay. And that's what this cloud of witnesses prepares us for. When the time is right, can we move forward with a decision? Can we move and onward into what we're doing? Right? Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to add one more quality, I think, for the people that I look for in my cloud. I absolutely love people that encourage innovation, that talk about different ideas, because I mean, I've got some ideas, but I feel like at some point, you kind of get like decision fatigue. You almost get idea fatigue. You're like, I don't know what else we can do. And if you go around and talk to some other people and say, I'm kind of stuck here, you can get that conversation going where, well, what about this? And what about this? And then all of a sudden it can keep the ball rolling and give you thoughts and ideas that you never would have come up with on your own. I love big picture thinkers. Now, I am not a detail guy. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a weakness of mine. And I delegate details to people that are way smarter than I am on the logistics of things. But if we can get ideas flowing, I get excited about that kind of stuff. Even in current context here, where I'm leading at Bethany, there's a lot of big things on the go. We've got a number of huge projects, including expanding to a second campus. And we have all these thoughts of, well, this is what we're going to do with that campus. But then you get these people that chime in and say, well, have you ever thought of this? And have you ever thought of this? And I think what it's going to end up looking like is way better than the initial thought of, hey, we could do this. And it's because people are speaking in from different parts of the ministry with needs that they believe it can fulfill. And now we can put this together and say, look what God did in our midst, because we weren't blinded to everything else that's around us. Now, the people that I have in my life that like to encourage innovation, they're also smart about it. And I'm going to link this to the beginning of the podcast, where they also know when to say no, because sometimes innovation can just be the flash in the pan. It's the fancy thing for today and it's going to be gone tomorrow. So you need to have wisdom to be able to say, I'm going to adopt this particular thing, but I'm going to say no to this for these reasons. But I do love people that cause me to brainstorm, that cause me to think about different ways of doing things or different ideas, because those people, when you're engaged in those conversations with them, the people we serve are at the heart of those conversations. We want to serve with excellence. We want to lead with excellence. We want to love with excellence. So how can we do that in innovative ways so these people can receive the love of God in Christ Jesus through the word that we're going to share with them? And that's fun for me.
Yeah, and that innovative bit comes out most for us when we have some boundaries we don't like. Honestly, look at how many schools and churches changed things because of COVID, and now they're still doing them. You had some rules. You can't do things a certain way, and you're like, okay, we'll do them a different way. And how many churches I've talked to that finally got internet because of COVID? They didn't have it. 2020, they didn't have internet, and now they're like, okay, I guess we have to get the internet now. And that boundary pushed them into a direction that we can all agree was beneficial for them, right? It was beneficial. And that's sometimes really helpful if somebody says, hey, these are your lanes. I know you want to talk about what if, right? But we don't have what if, we have this. Wouldn't it be great if we had $1 billion? Yeah, imagine what we could do with $1 billion. We don't have $1 billion. We have 15. What can we do with 15? And so that definitely gives us an opportunity to get a little more creative, and that's not a bad thing. And with this whole topic, messaging is really important with anything. Whether you're telling somebody about an idea or delivering a plan to someone, the messaging is really important. And having conversations with people who aren't who are kind of on the fence about it really helps you refine that. Have you ever talked to somebody and you're explaining something a certain way and they just don't like it? And then somebody else explains it and they look at you and like, well, why didn't you say it that way? And you're like, I thought I did. I was saying it that way. It gives us an opportunity to refine our message, because if we can't explain an idea simply, then we can't explain it at all, honestly. Think about like you're talking to a kindergartner. Explain it to a 5-year-old. That's what our ideas need to be distilled down to. We need them simple enough where somebody who doesn't know the minutia like you do understands. And these conversations give us the opportunity to do that, to explain it over and over again and craft it over and over again and trim out some things and add in some things and clarify some ideas and shape this piece. And that's really, really helpful, because a huge part of your job as a school leader is communicator. You are the chief communication officer for your school. You are. No one else is responsible for the entire message than you. And if somebody in your organization is not delivering the right message, guess whose job it is to fix that? So it really gives us this opportunity for you to flex that muscle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I would challenge you to do. I would challenge you to say, who's your cloud of witnesses? Identify those people. If you haven't done that already, or intentionally, take a minute and do that. And I think we need people in different realms in our life that can do that as well. Obviously, if you're married, your spouse is going to be your number one. For me, absolutely number one. I know I can talk to my wife about anything, and it's going to be fantastic. She is such a support for me that I wouldn't be where I am today without her. I can confidently say that. So I've got that in my personal realm. Now here at Bethany, I've identified an individual that I can go to and I can trust and I can say anything to, and I can receive anything from. And I think that's really important, that within your ministry, somebody who understands your context and can speak directly into some of the things that you're doing. I think there's a lot of value in that, but I would caution you to choose that person wisely. If you're a school administrator, I would not encourage that to be a parent, even if it's a good friend of yours. I think, it can get kind of dicey there. And we could talk categorically about, should it be a parent, should it be a church member, should it be a leader, should it be a pastor, should it be who? You'll have the wisdom, I believe, to identify who that is within your ministry, that you can have that complete trust relationship with, so they can guide you in that way. And then I would also encourage you to have somebody who's completely outside of your ministry, not connected at all. Somebody you can just say, hey, here's what I'm going through. Here's my perspective right now. Am I nuts? Now, they may not be able to speak specifically into the situation, but the people that I go to can say to me, like, I guess they can guide me through it in a way that takes the logistics out of the situation, but puts it on a level where, like, are you honoring God in the decisions that you're making? Are you loving others as you make these decisions? Do you have the resources to do that? They can ask questions that get you thinking in a different way. You can find those people far and wide, but they exist. I mean, if it's a district ed exec, if it's a fellow administrator that's, not connected to your school at all, if it's just, a guy you work out with at the gym, who knows? I mean, it could be any of those people, but as we talk more about this, I think it's really important that we identify who those people are. So I would encourage you to write that down. And sometimes you can even talk about formalizing that relationship. Maybe it becomes something that leads to a mentorship or a coaching relationship or something like that. But we don't want to underutilize this gift that God has given us in the great cloud of witnesses. And you are all a part of it. So God is with you every step of the way, and he's giving you other people to be there for you as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to kind of wrap this up, that God didn't make people in isolation, right? People have people around them, and we are wired that way from the factory, right? We need other people in our lives. We are social, and we need people that tell us yes. We need people that tell us no. We need people that love us. We need people that challenge us. And that's one of those things that those relationships, I truly think, are the difference between a fulfilling career in ministry and one that's not. And so it is truly, truly very, very important. I'm fortunate enough to have great people in my life. Mike, you're one of those people, right? I lean on you for stuff, and I ask you questions, and anybody listening to the podcast, Mike and I talk beforehand, and it's like I get a free coaching session from Mike. Basically, I go, Mike, what do I do? How do I do this? What would you do? I shouldn't probably say that because now he's going to charge me money. But if you have people in your life that you rely on, that's really a big thing. And if you're looking for some outside perspective, Mike and I are more than happy to do that. Reach out to us. We always include emails and phone numbers and descriptions and stuff. So if you need an outside perspective on something, we're happy to do that. Mike, you want to pray for our cloud of witnesses and then we'll wrap up?
I do. But I want to address, it's kind of funny because Rob and I met through Van Lunen, which was a great professional development experience, which for me expanded my cloud, because I agree, Rob, you're that for me too. And so it's kind of neat that you never know where people are going to come from. And I think we need to do part 2 of this. And part 2, I think, has to be talking about networking and the importance of networking as administrators and meeting people and intentionality there. But it's just kind of cool how that all worked out. So yeah, lots of great thoughts there. But why don't we go ahead and go to the Lord and thank him for his gifts. Heavenly Father, we thank you for each gift that you give us every day. Most importantly, God, thank you for the gift of Jesus. He has given us the joy of the message to share, and he's also promised that he's going to be with us every single step of the way. We are never alone, and with his presence, we know that we can do all things through him who gives us strength. I thank you that that you've also given us the gift of other people, that we have this great cloud of witnesses, people that are there to support us, that are there to listen, that are there to understand, and that are there to share your love with us as well. I pray that you would equip people to be able to identify their own cloud of witnesses, and also to realize when they are in somebody else's cloud, giving them the wisdom to be able to speak the truth in love and to hold up the prophet's hands. We ask that you would be with all of those who lead and all of those who serve as we share the wonderful gospel message. In Jesus' name, amen.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of From the Principal's Desk. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone else that can help. If you found it entertaining, please leave a rating or a review. And if you want to hear more episodes like this, subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a good week.